Welcome back to another episode, guys. Today we're going to be working on the Teal 240 as always because S chassis are never done like any other project in the world. It turns out my speedometer that I got in the last episode, or episode before that, doesn't actually work, so I'm going to put my old speedometer in because that kind of works. And then hopefully today we'll also be putting on our bumper for the Teal 240 because we need turn signals. It's hard to mount my turn signals on this bash bar with the way they are, so hopefully we're gonna fix that bumper sag and get everything straightened away, and hopefully this turns out alright. Before we begin, I want to give a shout out to Raphael over at Drift Magic. He's currently working on an R32 and an S13 drift build. His cousin's also got a sill front coupe, and they got a few other cool cars over there, so definitely go check them out. I also want to give a shout out to Eric over at Rev Match. Thank you for the video feature. Eric's currently working on an S13 that's built more for a road course setup, which I think is really cool. You don't see too many of those often on the internet. They do exist. He posts some other well-rounded video content, so go check him out as well. Now, let's get back to working on the S13. Woo, woo. Guys, I'm absolutely loving this black carpet. I think it really suits the rest of the interior and really ties it all together. Let me know what you guys think. I'm really digging this. Alright, so since we have to take the speedometer out, that means we have to take the whole gauge cluster out along with the gauge cluster bezel, drop the steering shaft, and the under panels, which is a pain in the butt, but I don't want to break anything, and that's the best route that I found around keeping everything intact, so that's what we're gonna do. This will feel like the 10th time within a couple months that I've disassembled the gauge cluster bezel, and it certainly won't be the last. Luckily, it isn't a challenge to get to. A mixture of screws and mostly 10mm bolts requires only a couple of tools, meaning less for me to lose later. Even when performing small jobs, organization is key to finishing a job effectively. It's not easy to accept the fact that 29 years ago is no longer 1971, and is instead 1989, so keep that in mind when handling your interior pieces, which are highly prone to cracking and crumbling into pieces. If the car never had the proper love it deserved over the years, then there is most likely nothing you can do to save your interior bits from disassembly, but it's always worth a try if you must. When disassembling your gauge cluster, try your best not to remove or touch the needles. They are quite finicky, being bound to a magnetic port that can become permanently damaged from any sort of tinkering. Best to remove the whole gauge as an assembly. So I couldn't really find a definitive reason as to why this speedometer shouldn't be working. I checked the chip on it, and I couldn't find any burnt connections or anything like that, so I'm gonna give it a go. Raise the back of the car up so that we can put it in drive and spin the wheels a little bit and see if we get a speed reading from that. If not, I'm just gonna try another gauge cluster and see, maybe just switch them out. So I let off the clutch after putting it in first gear. Wheels were spinning, but we weren't getting a speed reading, so I'm gonna plug in another gauge cluster real quick and see if that works. No speed reading from that either. That's weird. It's starting to look like it's more of a wiring issue rather than the gauge cluster itself, which is good, but it also means it's a pain in the butt because now I gotta track down where inside the dash it's not getting its signal. More than likely I'm just gonna try to find it rather than show you guys, and then once I do find it, if I find it, I'll let you guys know. Alright, so after going back and forth between the Teal 240, several other speedometers, and Carol, I found out that I'm just going to run with my old one because that still reads mileage, although it doesn't give me an accurate reading of speed because it still sticks. I guess for some reason that new speedometer that I thought was good is actually bad. For some reason it's not registering on here, although I didn't find any bad or burnt pieces or any burnouts on the speedometer board itself. I'm not really sure what to make of it, so I'm just gonna run with this. Unfortunately, I'll just have to go off my GPS reading, and kind of blows. I may find another speedometer in the future and try to replace it. But I did find some other neat things. If you guys remember the last episode, I put a couple bulbs in the glove compartment and I couldn't find the wire harness for it, but went back to Carol and this is what it looks like. Just a little Y piece. So That'll be nice. So this whole non-working speedometer thing kind of bums me out because I was really looking forward to having a working speedometer in my car. But we'll have to wait for that another day. I'll have to search online and see if I can find an actual working piece and swap it out. So I'm gonna put the rest of this back together and we'll get over to the front bumper. So now that we have the interior mostly squared away, we're gonna move to the front end of the car where hopefully we're gonna be fixing our bumper fitment issues. Now this thing hung really awfully off the front end of the car and it absolutely irked me from the beginning. So we're gonna be fixing that hopefully with the aid of our new/old bumper and headlight brackets. Mine were kind of falling apart and the welds kind of gave way. I guess it couldn't hold up to all of that awesome aero that this car had. I'll also show you guys some extra pieces that I have to help keep bumper saggage at a minimum because nobody likes saggy things. So this is the platform that's supposed to support the bumper. It's welded on to these brackets back here, but the weld broke most of the way and I just pulled them off. So, good thing we have new ones. To comfortably get to the bumper and headlight brackets, I'm going to remove the intercooler. This will give me a chance to address some issues from when we first got this project rolling. Now that the intercooler is off, we have to pop the hood to gain access to the bracket bolts. Now usually you would have two nuts to take off, but unfortunately one of the welded on back nuts got stripped, so I ended up having to use a zip tie for reasons other than this. So we're going to take off these two top ones, as well as that bottom one down there without a bolt. If you try to loosen any exterior bolts on an aged car without the precautionary use of PB Blaster, you must be a sucker for abuse. It's not uncommon to see small bolts like this snap upon hasty removal, which is exactly what happened to the missing bolts on the radiator support. Patience is key, and will save you the trouble of tapping out new threads. Well, after about 2 hours, we finally have our threaded tap. Alright, our bumper brackets are now on. Now we can get to putting the intercooler back on. So we've got new bumper brackets on the car, but I feel like this bumper is going to need a little more support. That's why I found this really cool shop called Auto Collect Storm. They make these bumper support brackets and they bolt onto your fenders to keep it from sagging down at all, which eliminates any sag. I also picked up these fender braces which connect your fender to your chassis. If you lose any of these, this is a great replacement piece. It actually feels much stronger than the OEM piece did. Mine would bend a lot and this is just solid aluminum construction. Really lightweight, and it's really cool that these braces come painted already. So we're gonna put these on. I think there's a little modification we have to do to the fenders, but just a little bending and nothing a hammer can't help us with. So let's get to it. It was a little difficult to get a camera in here while I was installing this, but it's pretty self-explanatory. You basically have a bolt up there to the chassis and a bolt and a nut here to the fender, and this keeps it nice and braced, doesn't keep it, or it keeps it from shaking everywhere in the wind. Really solid too. Really impressed. So this is the spot on the fender where this bracket's gonna go. It's basically gonna sit right underneath the bumper so that there's no sag in between here. It sits nice and snug. The only modification we have to do, it looks like, is bend this tab back right here because this is what keeps us from getting nice and flush against the fender here. So once we bang it out, we'll be able to drill a couple of holes and bolt it in with the supplied hardware they gave us. I don't even need a hammer, I can just push that in with my finger. Oh, this is gonna be so good, guys. So good. Basically just need to line everything up where it needs to go. So we definitely want to leave a little bit of a gap so that the bumper has room to sit in there. Probably leaving about maybe 1/4 inch. Yeah, this is gonna look good. Oh, lost my place. So now I just have to mark where the holes are at so that I can make my drilled holes. All right. Okay, let's see how this thing bolts up. So that's essentially what it should look like. I don't think I gave the bumper enough clearance to sit in there correctly, so I'm gonna take the bracket off, re-drill the holes a little lower, and then hopefully the next shot you'll see what the bumper should look like on this car. And with the beautiful magic of YouTube, we're gonna go from this to this. Let's see how this bumper looks with the hood set down. Dude, that's looking way better. It's a little gap that lift can fill up. I know that Street Faction sells their bash bars with an upper support bar to eliminate this bumper sag problem. When I initially got this car, I wanted to go Sylvia front with it, but I don't know, the poplifts are kind of growing on me, so the option's there if I ever want it. But I'm pretty happy with how the bumper sag has been eliminated for the most part. It actually really does a great job at helping out. I think I'll put the support for the front bumper back on, and hopefully that should eliminate a lot of it as well. Woo! Oh my goodness, guys, look at that. Look at that. Bumper sag minimization achieved for the most part. It's looking pretty good. It's about 90% of the way there. I'm sure the body shop could do this much better than I can, but not bad for little DIY wannabe mechanic. Does the bumper look perfect? Absolutely not. What are you guys thinking? It's almost impossible to achieve that level of satisfaction with a project car, you know that. But we achieved our goal of eliminating any bumper saggage on the front end of this car, and I'm absolutely stoked with how it turned out. So I think that's gonna be it for this video, you guys. If you guys got anything out of the video, please be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.